let's move on to some climate change news. Hey. All right. This is from BBC, May 7th. Mark Carney says we can't self-isolate from climate change. The former governor of the Bank of England, Mark Carney, has added his voice to calls for industrialized nations to invest in a greener economic recovery from the COVID-19 crisis. He shared his comments in an online discussion about climate change with the former Prime Minister of Australia, Malcolm Turnbull. Both called on nations to accelerate a transition to cleaner energy. The event was organized by the Policy Exchange think tank. McCartney said that the pandemic was a terrible situation, but there was also a big opportunity at the end of it. We have a situation with climate change which will involve every country in the world, and from which we can't self-isolate. So, ding, ding, ding. As has rapidly become the socially distant norm, both participants joined the discussion via video conference from their respective homes, setting out how they saw ways in which countries could emerge from the crisis with cleaner, more sustainable economies. Sounds really good. Mr. Turnbull, who was Australia's Prime Minister from 2015 to 2018, issued blunt, broad criticisms of many governments for failing to take the science of climate change seriously. Drawing bleak parallels with the pandemic, Mr. Turnbull said COVID-19 was a case of biology confronting and shaking the complacency of day-to-day politics with the physical reality of sickness and death. This is a great sentence here. The question is, when will the physics of climate change mug the complacency and denialism, just as biology has with respect to the virus? That is an awesome quote. When? When will it? The answer is when governments actually admit and then start acting like it's as dangerous as the virus. And then they show this graph, which I showed to you the other day. Most people think that climate change is a serious coronavirus. This is true in every country, even the US and Australia, which, is lowest on the list. But still over 50%. Leapfrog ahead. Mr. Carney, who stepped down as Bank of England governor in March, just before the UK lockdown began, explained that at a time when many industries would have to restructure, this would be a chance to try to get back to the status quo. As countries relaunched and rebuilt their economies, they should try to leapfrog ahead. He said he recommended regulatory policies that would push economies more quickly toward greener growth. So of course he's a banker and he's like, green growth, that's what we need. Because we need growth, but gosh, it should be green. And that green is money and a more sustainable future, citing the UK's plan to phase out petrol and diesel cars by 2035. Governments, he added, should also take the opportunity to invest in wind and solar power to accelerate the transition to greener energy. All right, so of course, because he's a banker, he sees everything as a capitalist equation. So everything is all about investing in finance and profits. Many countries would have the opportunity to invest in sustainable infrastructure, Mr. Carney said, pointing out that opportunity was missed after the 2008 financial crisis. Well, yeah, of course it was, because if you actually saw this from a different angle, which would be the socialist angle, which it should be looked at, right? So this country is not taking care of people in the way that other countries have taken care of their citizens because, oh my God, we can't have socialism. The dirty, dirty word that is socialism. We can't give people health care. We can't give people money to live on. Well, my God, we got to get them back to work, because that's what this country is about, is going back to work. And if you actually cared about green growth or investing in green technology, you would just nationalize the power grid, the infrastructure that is our energy infrastructure. You would nationalize it and convert it. You would take it out of the hands of bankers and investors and Wall Street. You just say, no, no, we're going to do this, and you guys aren't going to have anything to say about it. But are we going to do that? Are we any closer to doing that? Awesome. Oh, so I just had to mention this chat. Blade Runner brought to you by the Yamaha CS80S. Lots of good, weird keyboard sounds in there. Anyways, let's go back to this article. So, you know, if any countries are serious about this, they would be nationalizing their energy industries, and taking the profit motive out of it and just transitioning. The best case scenario would be a degrowth scenario or a downshift scenario in which we nationalize these industries, at the same time telling people that they must live with much less energy and much less consumption, and we would just, you know, take apart these. We would take apart these power plants and maybe give people like local or individual solar panels so they can generate a little bit of electricity, you know, to use internet and some lights, but, you know, take away the incentive to actually use massive amounts of energy. Anyways, interesting-ish article. So this was tweeted by Greta Thunberg this morning. Brazil's Amazon, this is from 2 days ago, surge in deforestation as the military prepares to deploy. The military is prepared to deploy. Deforestation in Brazil's Amazon rainforest rose sharply last month as the country prepared to send troops to try to curb illegal logging and mining. That's wild, considering Bolsonaro is still in power. And he was like, let him log and mine. And now he's like, oh, wait, maybe this is out of control. He was the one that opened the floodgates to this, wasn't he? Brazil's Space Research Agency said the area destroyed in April was 64% bigger than in the same period last year. Holy shnikes. In the first 4 months of 2020, destruction of the forest by illegal loggers and ranchers rose 55%. Environmentalists say President Jair Bolsonaro's policies and rhetoric encourage illegal activity. Mr. Bolsonaro denies this. Earlier this week, he authorized the deployment of armed forces to the region. Wow. The Amazon rainforest is a vital carbon store that slows down the pace of global warming. Brazil's National Institute of Space Research, INPE, said that more than 405 square kilometers of the Amazon had been deforested last month, compared with 248 square kilometers in April last year. Between January and April, a total of 1,202 square kilometers was wiped out, it said. Conservation groups said that since the coronavirus outbreak began, fewer government enforcement agents had been deployed. Brazil has been one of the worst affected countries in South America with 141,000 cases and nearly 10,000 deaths. The pandemic has not helped because there are apparently less agents out there, and illegal loggers obviously don't care about the virus in remote areas of the Amazon, said Paulo Barreto, senior researcher for the nonprofit conservation group Amazon. Environmental Enforcement Agency IBAMA said it was scaling back field agents in other at-risk areas, but not in the Amazon. Deforestation in the region has soared. Since President Bolsonaro took office last year, he has argued that more farming and mining in protected areas of the forest are the only way to lift the region out of poverty. Okie dokie. Mr. Bolsonaro's environmental policies have been widely condemned, but he has rejected the criticism, saying Brazil remains an example for conservation. All right. If you say it, it must be true. He has criticized IBAMA for what he described as excessive fines. His first year in office saw a sharp drop in financial penalties being imposed for environmental violations. At the same time, the agency remains underfunded and understaffed. Does that sound familiar? It sounds almost identical to what is going on with Trump and the EPA and other environmental regulatory agencies. Hey guys, remember to like, share, and subscribe. You can also support the channel at the links below: PayPal, Square, Patreon. Thank you so much.